There.
No, coffee.
Yeah, I just finished my first one of the day. We actually just opened up a food truck last weekend, and so we have like a fancy coffee machine, espresso machine that we've been using and
Neat.
testing for the past 2 months here at home. It's been amazing. And then 2 days ago, something happened, and now we can't pull a proper espresso shot. So I'm just like, and we ran out of coffee, so we have to go to Costco, and I'm just like dying. So we're driving out to the local store to pick up coffees to go, and I've only had one so far. And normally I'm like a 3 coffee girl in the morning. So this is
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay awake.
So it looks like we're live. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our program, Books and Barbells, which is new, where we talk about nutrition and fitness topics. I am Rory Martirana. I am an adult service librarian here at New Haven Free Public Library. And today I am joined by Michelle Vodrazka, author of the Bodybuilding Meal Prep Cookbook, which you can see behind me. Michelle is a culinary nutrition expert, transformational nutrition coach, a sports nutritionist, yoga instructor, and personal trainer, whose passion is teaching people how they can transform their lives through nutrition and exercise. She's a sought-after nutrition and fitness expert, Huffington Post blogger, international speaker, corporate wellness consultant. Michelle has published 2 other cookbooks, Smart Snacking for Sports and the best-selling Help Yourself to Seconds. And thank you so much, Michelle, for hanging out with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here, actually. So thank you.
So to jump right into it, like what inspired you or prompted you to put this out there?
Yeah, so basically I've been involved in fitness my whole life since I was 18. I started training, I think, when I was like 19 years old. And that was back in the day when, back in, like I'm trying to think of what this was, like back in the 90s, when everyone thought, low fat, fat free, it's all about calorie counting. That's the only thing that matters. You could have eaten, like 4 packs of Twizzlers as long as it was fat free and like you were under your calorie count. You were good to go. And after having done a lot of training with people and assessments and put in many hours and seeing how hard they worked in the gym, and they would get fitter and they get stronger, feel great, more energetic, but their body composition wasn't necessarily changing as much as it should have, given how much effort they were putting in at the gym. And I found that really frustrating. And I wanted to figure out a way to be able to help my clients achieve, which was mostly either muscle gain or fat loss, to recomposition their bodies. And so I had to find another, way and figure out why they weren't achieving those goals. So after a lot of research and experimentation, I ended up going into bodybuilding myself. This is years later. Worked with many coaches who taught me a lot of what I know, and then fell in love with nutrition and saw what great of an impact it can have on someone's body composition, and that all those, all that work in the gym, all those gains just like started just automatically coming. And it was just, finally I was seeing the results I wanted to. And so I took all of my courses and all of my training and learned how much of a role nutrition really plays in the gains that you make in the gym, and then how your body ends up, responding and being able to lose the fat or gain the muscle that you want. So then after, working on sports nutrition for a while, I figured to put some of my bodybuilding knowledge in, and came to this book, because really that's what most people want, right? They want to lose fat, and they want to gain muscle. So that's how this book was born.
Awesome. So meal prep is becoming a really popular concept lately. Can you sort of explain the basics of meal prep and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So basically meal prep is just preparing a bunch of meals ahead of time for a couple days or for the week. It could even be just for one day, just to make sure that, you're hitting, whether they're your performance goals, your fat loss, or your muscle gain goals, or just, if you want to just get healthier and eat better food that you make yourself at home, this is a really great way to do that. And it doesn't even have to require, macro counting or any of that. It could really just be, finding like some healthy recipes, figuring out how you can prepare them in bulk, portion them up into containers so you have them for the rest of the week and you don't have to stress about it. You don't have to grab something last minute that's unhealthy. And just being able to put like those simple, basically procedures on how to make it as efficient as possible and still be really healthy and save yourself some time, and stay on track with those goals.
All right. So the cookbook, you started out with some basic nutrition information. Can you talk a bit about the importance of nutrition in terms of gym gains and performance? Because it's a lot more important than a lot of people realize.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. So one of the things we see a lot is like people going to the gym again and just putting in all the work and just not getting the kind of results they want. And really a huge part of that is your nutrition, how you eat at home. And in fact, I would say that 80% of your body composition, the way you look, your performance goals, your gains in the gym are tied to your nutrition and what you do in your kitchen. And of course, meal prep and knowing how to set up your macronutrient goals are like a really important part of that. And I always bring it back to the fact that we were built for survival. So our bodies were meant to, retain as much energy or as many calories as they could to be able to go really, really long distances to gather and hunt and prepare our foods. So when you think about it in the modern world, we don't have to do all that. We don't have to expend all that energy anymore. And we can just get food at our fingertips without putting, without any, calorie expenditure. So our bodies are really good at retaining calories, and taking it in and holding on to it, and not so good at, burning it off, because we want to keep that energy there so we can survive and get back home to our families. So when you look at it that way, going to the gym for an hour, that might burn, let's say, depending on what you're doing, let's say 400 calories if you're weightlifting or so. I can go to Tim Hortons and grab a muffin and like a coffee with cream in it. And in 5 minutes, I've just basically negated all those calories that I just burned at the gym, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing depending on what your goals are. But then when you think about, how much effort you're putting in, you want to be able to see those results. So that's where proper nutrition comes in, and knowing, how to eat right for your performance goals. Some of that might be fat loss. Some of that might be muscle gain. Some of it might just be having more energy for the workouts. If you're doing 2-hour workouts and you're hardcore CrossFitter, you have to eat to be able to stick through that and get through those workouts. So basically that's where it brings you back to making sure that you know what your goals are, and then figuring out how to eat for those goals so that you can get the most out of the work that you're putting in the gym, and all that really hard effort just doesn't get wasted.
Yeah. Trying to think what else to talk about here. So I know you had mentioned fat loss. A lot of people are really preoccupied with that. Do you think it's that important to just aim for fat loss? Like the point of the cookbook is kind of like to, not have to worry about making your meals and stuff like that. But fat loss, I noticed like I lost a lot of fat over the pandemic, when we were talking about this earlier, because I was working out a lot because that was all I had to do. And you get to a certain point where I think, especially for women, like we kind of need to realize there's like a certain point where you can't lose anymore because we need it. Like I was losing my, cycle and stuff. Is following like a meal prep and a nutrition plan like this, that's like a better way to do it, right? Than cherry picking things and avoiding certain foods because they're too fattening.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like we need a good level of fat for proper hormonal balance. So if you were losing your cycle, again, there could be a couple things happening in the background where basically like your caloric intake for how much you're moving might have been too low. So there was actually a negative calorie balance, or there might have been too little fat in your diet too, or maybe even too low protein. And a lot of times, or you were doing it for too long. So there's so many factors that could have led to that, but our bodies need the adequate amount of protein, the adequate amount of fat and carbohydrates to operate properly. Like there are a lot of variances in there depending on body type, performance, what you're doing, all of that. But that's where the whole macronutrients come in. And really the fat loss, don't eat anything with fat in it, you know, back from like the 90s is a thing that we've now realized the importance of having fat and healthy fat in our diet. So this is what, you know, this cookbook and meal prep cookbook focuses on, is how to figure out those, you know, the calories you need for your goals, for how much you're moving in a day, which is called total daily energy expenditure. And that just means how many calories or how much energy your body expends throughout a day. And there's easy calculations to figure that out, and we can get into that later. And then it talks you through how to break down into macronutrients, which are just basically nutrients your body needs in macro or large amounts in order to be healthy, for whether it's performance, whether it's, you know, proper hormonal balance, all of that, like feeling good, proper mental health, all plays into that. Those are a lot of hormones working in the background, and how to create those macronutrient splits to make sure that you have enough of each to meet those daily requirements. Yeah, so for women, going back to that, it is a big focus, but I would say it's a big focus for men too. By far, that's what most people are looking for when they come and ask to work with me, is fat loss. Muscle gain is something people tend to focus on a lot less. And I try to show them how important the muscle gain is, because the more muscle you have, the more, you know, active tissue your body has, the more you can eat, right? The better the faster your metabolism is. And, you know, it's just a really healthy way to be, and to try and maintain as much muscle or gain as much muscle as you can throughout whatever diet that you're going to be following. And for women, yes, they need a certain amount of fat in their bodies. You can get really low. You can get on a bodybuilding stage, close to 10% body fat, and not lose your cycles. That is possible, but you have to do it right. You have to know when to take the breaks. You have to have the proper, you know, nutrients, both micro and macro. So your vitamin and minerals have to be high enough as well. And then if we're eating the same things or just avoiding certain foods, you're going to miss out on either those macro or micronutrients, which could affect, again, your cycles or your hormonal health, your mental health, your energy levels, your sleep. I mean, I could go on and on. So
yeah,
absolutely. You hit it right. You know, the way you did it right. So, and congratulations.
So, getting deeper into the macronutrients. So that's your protein, your carbs, and your fats. Are there specific food sources that you would suggest that are better than others for each one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, one of the things that I want to say is, like, there's really I would never say avoid any food ever, because it's small amounts, and, you know, like little bits, and having treats here and there. That's a great thing to have. It brings pleasure to your life. It makes you stay on track with the healthy eating, because you have something to look forward to. And, you know, it takes away the focus of just, you know, trying to have like whether you end up with body dysmorphia or just trying to be perfect all the time. It'll get exhausting, and eventually it'll wear both on your body and your mind. So nothing is off the table, which is the great thing about, you know, counting macros, is that the way that it's set up ideally is that, you know, you get the bulk of your, you know, macronutrient needs met from healthy whole foods, and then you still have space for some of those indulgences, or, you know, being able to have some, whether it's dessert or a burger or fries or whatever, and having that really great balance for your body. So in terms of proteins and carbs and fats, the first thing that you want to make sure to do is that when you're looking for a source of, let's say, protein, that food that you're going to eat is consisting mostly of protein. And a lot of people will say, okay, well, how about like peanut butter, you know, because it's high in protein, but that doesn't mean it's a protein when we're looking and counting macros, because it's more fat than it is protein. So you have to look at the content and the grams of protein, carbs, and fats in each food, and whatever percentage is the highest. So if protein's the highest, it's probably going to be mostly a protein food, and you're going to stick with that. So if I'm going to go and choose, let's say I'm going to have some, you know, chicken thigh, that's amazing. It's a great source of protein, but I'm also getting a lot of fat with that. And then at the end of the day, that might affect my macros in a way that I don't want it to affect. Nothing wrong with chicken thighs. Again, I personally love them. We have them in our tacos on our truck. But just keeping that in the back of your head, saying, okay, I really need more protein to meet my needs, to be able to gain muscle, because if you don't eat the protein, you can't gain muscle. It's just, it's really, really hard to do. Then I'm going to choose, let's say, like something that has a lot more protein in it and much less fat or much less carbs. So that might be, let's say, like you could do like eggs or egg whites. You might be able to do like chicken breast, lean fish, shellfish. You could do, you know, some dairy, like lower fat dairy products, unless you're trying to bulk, in which case full fat dairy products are great because you're going to need more calories. So it really depends on your goals that way. In terms of your carb sources, I mean, anything from like your rices, your quinoa, oats are one of my favorites. I eat oats pretty much every day. You know, starchy vegetables, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. And then of course, all your fruits as well are really great sources of carbohydrates. And then for your fats, I mean, anything from the oils that you cook with, because you'll have to take that into account as well if you are looking to, you know, follow a certain diet. You know, avocado, nuts, seeds, oils. I love olive oil. I love avocado oil. Coconut oil are some of my favorites. And avocados, I just love. Fatty fish, salmon is absolutely beautiful, or herring, mackerel, if you like those, like a smoked herring or mackerel, you can do that as well.
Avocado oil is so great, so expensive.
Oh my God. And it's so easy to cook with on high heat, which is really important.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
One of the things that, you know, I let people know is like, if you have your oil and you're cooking in it and stuff starts like smoking and smells like it's burning, you probably don't have the right oil for what you're trying to cook. So you might want to find something with a higher smoke point. And again, like, you know, that would be your avocado oil would be great for that. Coconut oil is amazing. So just look at some of the different oil choices there. Butter too. Butter's great.
Mm-hmm. So for people who maybe aren't great at math or are new to it, like what's an easy way to know how much of each thing to eat, like how to calculate the macros? There are a couple formulas and stuff, and you talk about that in the cookbook, but like, there are macro calculators online, but are they reliable? Like, what would you have to say about those?
Yeah, so that's the key. And I didn't even talk, I just realized on any like vegetarian or vegan sources. We can go back to that later on if you want to, because it's a little bit harder to get pure protein, you know, macros from your foods, because usually it's a combo between your carbs and your protein when you're looking at vegan or vegetarian types of foods. But we'll go back to that after. So for online calculators, the formula that I use personally in the book is the Katz-McCardle formula, because it does take into account your body composition and how much body fat you have. And it really changes the calculation quite a bit depending on if you have a higher or lower body fat level, and tends to be more accurate that way. So that's the one that I would use to calculate your basal metabolic rate. And I know you had asked me before what that was. And your basal metabolic rate is basically, if you were lying in bed in the morning, you weren't sleeping, you're awake, but you didn't get up and you didn't do any activity, that's how many calories your body would need just to maintain its like vital processes. Okay, just to maintain itself at that level. So that'll give you that calculation. And then from that calculation, basically you want to figure out your TDEE, or again, your total daily energy expenditure, which is higher always than your BMR, higher than your basal metabolic rate. And that's takes into account all the activities that you're doing throughout the day. So let's say my basal metabolic rate was, let's say 1,000 and calories a day. If I were just lying in bed, because I work out 2 hours a day and I have an active job, now I might be at like 1,700 calories per day to actually maintain my activity levels and my basic body processes. So to calculate that, you can go online. There's a million calculators that you can find out there. Some of them are completely inaccurate, and depending on which calculator you go to, you could get a variance of, you know, up to 500 calories, no problem.
Yeah.
So finding, I do have a calculation in the book that I took a lot of time. Like basically I took it from the Katz-McCardle formula. And then I use the activity levels that are commonly used online. I tweaked those ones a little bit because I found they tend to overestimate how much we move a day. So you can go in there, you can do the math, use the calculator. It's actually pretty easy once you know your body fat percentage. Or if you go online, I'm a big fan of Michael Matthews. So if you guys don't have his books on review, you should, because he's amazing. And he has an online calculator. It's called actually the best. I wrote it down because I knew you were going to ask me this. It's called the best online macro calculator on the web. And it actually is. It's under Legion Athletics. And all of his books, he has a very similar philosophy as me in terms of nutrition. A lot of the very similarities in terms of calculations and macro breakdowns and what he recommends. And he is a wealth of knowledge. He's got an amazing, amazing podcast as well that you can listen to. So I definitely recommend going there to make it really easy for yourself. Now, that all being said, everybody is different. Each body is different. There's things that we, tend to think, okay, we eat this many calories. Generally, we're always eating 15% more than what we think we're eating. We always think we're moving more than we're actually moving. And then our bodies are very different in terms of how they process recovery and movement and calories. So I would start with one of the calculations, either from my book or from online, and then test it for 2 weeks and see what happens. So if you are in maintenance mode, and then that amount of calories and macros that you're eating, and you start to lose weight, well, then you know that you need to increase by 100 calories or 200 calories. So try that and then recalculate and retest it. So put everything to test and then adjust as needed based on your results.
So you kind of mentioned a couple times like bulking or maintenance. For people who might not be familiar with it or new to this kind of lifestyle, what's the difference there, and like what's the purpose of these things?
Yeah, so cutting is basically what most people want to do. And what that means in like bodybuilding or macro counting lingo is you're just going to try and add as much muscle or the desired amount of muscle as you can to your body. And you're going to try and so bulking, adding muscle, and you're going to minimize the amount of fat that you're going to gain. Probably you will gain a little bit of fat because it's really, really hard to bulk and add a lot of muscle mass without adding a touch of fat. Okay, so your goal is, again, minimize the fat gain and maximize the muscle gain. Now, if you're cutting, then basically your focus is on losing fat, and your goal is going to be to try to maintain the muscle that's already on your body and not lose any of it. It's really hard to do unless you're a beginner. When you're a beginner, you can actually add muscle and lose fat at the same time to a point. If you're a seasoned exerciser and you've been doing this for a while, it's pretty tough to do both at the same time if you've been working out the right way. And Michael Matthews talks a lot about what the right way to work out is. So I would definitely go and refer to his books to figure that out. Because you could be in the gym for 10 years and never have worked out right to meet those specific goals. So, and then maintenance is obviously just maintaining where you're at, and you might be eating in maintenance mode, either because you're happy with, how you look, how you perform, how much, how energetic you feel, or you might be maintaining because you're now in competition mode and your goal is really just performance. And so you're just going to maintain where you are and eat enough to be able to perform optimally, whether it's on the field or, in the arena or wherever that might be.
So what would the average person who just wants to like stay healthy need to know about all this stuff like macros and that kind of thing? People who maybe are new to the gym, even about maintaining a healthy diet without going nuts studying nutrition concepts and weighing their food and getting all into sciencey formulas.
So what would they do? Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, like what can, it can be really daunting. I know when I was new to this, like I didn't realize there was so much to it.
Yeah.
For people who are new to it or like beginners, what's a great way to sort of get into being healthier without having to, be overwhelmed with counting calories and figuring out what to eat and that sort of thing?
Okay, so first of all, you did the exact thing that I would recommend. Actually, one of the things is you went and got help. So
Mhm.
you know, joined a small group training facility, and they had a lot of information and knowledge on how to exercise properly and how to eat right. So that was a great move, is going to the experts and getting their help, who can teach you as you know, bit by bit, so you don't get overwhelmed by everything. And they'll basically tell you a little bit, and then once you get comfortable with that, they'll add on the next piece, and then the next piece, and they'll guide you through and sift through that massive amount of information that you can find on the internet or at your fingertips. Because anyone can learn this stuff, right? It's all there for you. The problem is knowing which ones you can rely on, which ones are trustworthy sources, and then, you know, and also figuring out what you need to focus on. Because so many times I've seen people, okay, I want to lose weight, I'm going to do keto. Okay, they try that for 2 weeks, it didn't work. Okay, then someone tells them about another supplement, so now they're going to go and try that
Yeah.
supplement. Someone tells them they lost 20 pounds on this diet, then they switch to that diet. So they're just spinning in circles, trying something new all the time, not really getting, you know, the knowledge that they need, which is really comes down to really basic healthy habits. And that is what I would recommend as my second step for people that are just, you know, overwhelmed, new to this, not knowing where to start, is just to focus on healthy habits. So, you know, start with the one thing that you think is going to make the biggest impact. And that might be, you know, and you usually know, people usually know what it is they're struggling the most with. They'll be like, I just eat out too much, or I don't drink enough water, or I tend to not eat for 10 hours a day and then I binge at night, or they know they're not eating enough protein, but they don't know how to incorporate more. So usually you have a gut feeling as to what your issues are, and focusing on one thing, one small habit that's the easiest thing that you can do, and implementing that. And then once you've got that down, a couple weeks later, adding another habit. And this is like basically like, you know, adding on and layering and creating these lifestyle changes, but not in a way that you're drastically dropping everything you did before and then trying to do it all at once. So for me, that's what I would recommend to these people. Okay, so let's start with one big thing that, so the basic habits that I tend to give some of my clients, because most people are not at the advanced level where they need to count macros or where they even can. Most clients are a level 1 client, which is like they just need some healthy habits to start with. And usually I don't even talk, you know, macros until someone has those really great habits in place. So that might be, okay, we're going to fill half your plate with vegetables at every meal. Half your plate is going to be vegetables. Let's start there. Can you do that? If you can do that, does that seem really easy for you? If they say, yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We're going to do that for 2 weeks. I don't need you to change anything else. Just add, you know, half your plate full of veggies. Let's say they do that right and they keep going. 2 weeks later, I say, so how did that go? They're like, awesome. I'm on track. Okay, great. So now we're going to add like a serving of protein to each meal. So the size of the palm of your hand, you're going to
Mhm.
add that, and you're going to have that at every single meal, including breakfast. And then I'm going to give them some options. You know, what's a great, you know, protein choice that I can have first thing in the morning? You know, like a veggie egg omelet would be one example. A, you know, protein smoothie would be another. And I give them a list of a couple of options that they can choose from. So I give them that. They go back. We're talking. They come back to me and I say, how did it go? And they're like, I couldn't do it. It was just too hard. I just don't, I'm overwhelmed. Okay, so now we're going to step back and we're going to find how we can make that easier, and or how we can change to a different habit. So I might say, okay, well, that seems really tough for you right now based on your schedule, what you're going through. Do you think you can maybe, you know, I know that you were struggling with your hydration. Do you think you can drink 6 glasses of water a day? Write them down. Oh yeah, that's super easy. I can do that. Okay, we're going to do that now. We're going to do that for 2 weeks until you get that habit down, because then you're going to be less hungry. You're going to be less likely to, you know, go off your diet, crave other things. You're going to feel better. You're going to be more energetic. You'll sleep better. You'll have, you know, you'll be going to the bathroom easier, you know, all these things that they might have been struggling with. And then you just keep layering these habits on and going at their pace and picking the habits that they are going to be, you know, find the easiest, so they can have the most success, so they can feel good about themselves, so they're motivated to keep going, and so that they're ready for the next habit. And then we might go back and tackle the protein again and find, why is it they're struggling with adding protein to every meal. But that's the, like, really those are the basics right there. You know, half your plate full of vegetables, a quarter of your plate, the palm size of your hand of protein, or 2 for men, you know, making sure you're drinking enough water, and then we can get into the more complicated stuff. So that's really where I would focus on. And the other big thing during COVID would be to just set up your environment for success. Because one of the problems is that we're at home all the time, and this is our environment, and we're influenced by our environment. So if I have a fridge or, cupboards full of junk food, and it's super convenient for me to eat all the unhealthy food, and I'm home all the time, and I want to get on track, well, I would tell them, okay, we're going to clean out your kitchen. We're going to set yourself up for success. We're going to take all those junk foods. We'll take them out of the house. We're going to get rid of them. If there's things you can donate those. And we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to fill it with healthy options that make it really, really easy for you to succeed. And if that means going to the grocery store and getting a box, like a container of fruit that's pre-cut, or pre-cut vegetables, or pre-made hummus, or rotisserie chicken, or ready-made hard-boiled eggs. Like, you don't have to actually make any of this. It's a meal prep cookbook, but you could just prep your meals with those big bulk ready to go items that are healthy. And then guess what? If you want to go out for ice cream, go ahead, but go out, have a single serving, don't bring a tub home, come back home. And then again, where you spend the most of your time and what you're influenced most by is all the healthy stuff that's going to help you meet your goals. So those would be the two things: easy habits, and then setting your environment up to succeed.
So you mentioned like fad diets and sort of like misleading kind of things. How can the average person better educate themselves on like what's reputable and like what's just a total gimmick?
Oh, okay. That's a really tough one. Because I see this all the time. We have so many people coming or emailing us and saying, hey, I heard about this supplement, or what do you think of this diet? And it's usually, so if it seems like a fad, or it's got like unbelievable results that happen really quickly, it probably is. Like, that's the best advice I can give. There's really no magic to healthy eating, to meeting your goals. There's no trick, there's no supplement that's going to get you there faster. That's the number one thing I want to say. I'm a big fan of the proper supplementation, but it's a supplement to your actual food. So my food is going to get me 95% of the results. And then my supplements might get me up another percentage point or two once I have the bulk of my food the way that it needs to be. Like, once everything else is on track, that's like the big pyramid. The supplements is the tiny, tiny little part on track that might make a percentage difference, probably to the really, really elite people. Because there's nothing that you really can't do with food that's going to get you like 90% of the way to your goals. So that's the one thing I would say. Yes, like a great multivitamin or a protein powder are super helpful and make things so much easier, but they're not magic, and they're not going to, again, get you the big results, the most return on your investment that you really want to get. In terms of fad diets, like, we've been playing and eating with nutrition for like since we were hunting and gathering. There really is no secret. I don't think anything's ever going to come in our lifetime where you can like take a pill and it's going to magically get you all the results you want. So I would just say, always focus back on the basics. If you're not sure, find someone who's certified in nutrition, whether it's a dietitian or a certified nutritionist, and reach out to them and ask them for their help. And don't believe the hype. And if it seems like a fad, it probably is.
Something I noticed though about all of these fad diets is that they're all kind of based on the calorie deficit, which is just like, what you were talking about in your book. So it's like, it's strange that they take something that's so basic that, clean eating or healthy eating is already based on, and then they magic it and,
for sure, and
change stuff around and market it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. At the bulk of it, they all have if we're talking fat loss, they all have a caloric deficit in them. And that's why, they work if you follow them to a T. But again, how easy it is to follow that plan is another thing I would consider. So if you're looking at, let's say, fasting, intermittent fasting, well, you're only eating in a much smaller time frame. And actually, I'm a fan of fasting for the right, for the right purpose and for the right lengths of time, depending on, whether you're male or female and so on. But again, if you fast for, 16 hours a day and you only eat an 8, usually that cuts down, how full you're going to get in that time. So you 8 hours of eating, you'll probably end up eating less at the end of the day. And there are some hormonal changes that happen when you're in fasting mode. But again, it's a caloric deficit, right? Keto at the end of the day, part of it's a caloric deficit. Part of it's, the fact that you are not holding on to water because your carbohydrates hold on to water. And when you stop eating carbs, some of that water disappears. So there's instant weight loss, but it's not weight loss, it's water loss. So a lot of these, like you said, the foundations are based around, caloric deficits. And for some people, keto is really hard. For some people, fasting is really hard. For some people, eating vegan is really hard. And depending, again, if the goals are fat loss, because that's what most people's goals are, a caloric deficit will get you there. But you also want to make sure that you're in the right amount of deficit, that it's sustainable, that it's easy for you to follow, that you can maintain this again, for a long period of time and you don't go on and off of it, and that you also are getting the right nutrients so that your body is still healthy, and you're not affecting your hormonal health or your energy levels or your sleep or heart health or like any, bone health or any of that.
So for your cookbook, I was telling you about this before we started, but I picked up your cookbook when I was working with, experts for ideas for different meals to eat, because I was like deferring to the same couple things and I was getting a little bored. There is like a set plan in there, pick these certain number of meals for this, and like you can set it up for the week. Do you think, and I guess it just depends on people's goals, but would you recommend that people like pick and choose? Like I was picking things, but I know a lot about the macros and stuff, and I'm like in courses to be a nutrition coach and stuff like that. Like for the average person, would you recommend just cherry picking recipes out of there, or like actually following all of the advice that you've written in the book?
Of course, I recommend following all the advice. It's written in a way that makes it easy. So each week, so it asks you for your goals, whether you're maintaining, cutting, or bulking. And then based on that, it gives you your breakdown for your calories and your macronutrients. Then it gives you a plan with, it starts off with a few recipes in week 1, and then it builds on more and more recipes once you get to the end of the 12 weeks, which makes it easier because you won't be overwhelmed by new recipes, how to prepare stuff, too much to prep at once. So I definitely would recommend following that, especially if you're new or newer and you're interested in macros and in achieving your goals. If it's someone like you where you've had the experience and you're comfortable with macros, you know what you're doing, you're comfortable in the kitchen, you're good spending, like 2 hours every Sunday to prep your meals for the week because it's going to save you so much more time in the long run. Absolutely. Go ahead and there's another 50 recipes, I think, in the back of the book that you can pick from. Actually, some of my favorites are in there and not even in the plan that you follow. And I know you want to know which ones I really like. So the lean French toast is one of my very favorites. My kids love that one, so I make that one all the time. I'm a big fan of oatmeal, but more so in the fall and the winter time, when you want something warm to wake up with. And the chocolate tahini oats and the blueberry cobbler are also in the back of the book. And those are 2 of my other favorite recipes. So you can tell I have a sweet tooth. I'm all about
so do I. That's what I really liked about it. I flipped through it and I was like, oh, this is going to work.
Yes, same here. And I think for women more so, it tends to be we're more into the sweets, and the guys tend to be more into either the meats or the salty, right? So anyways, I wrote it the way that I would have liked to eat, and then some of my friends were like, what about, and I'm like, okay, so I added a bunch of those back in. The banana and ice cream, I eat that all the time as my dessert. And then I'm trying to think, I wrote down a couple other ones that were non-sweet ones. So I had the lean turkey portobello caps, so that I really love, and the zucchini pizza boats. And those are both
zucchini pizza boats are my favorite.
Awesome.
I'm addicted to those.
Oh, they're so good. And like,
Yeah.
even if you don't like zucchini, like they just turn out amazing, because zucchini on its own, I could leave it or take it, but in the pizza boat somehow, it just like it's awesome.
That's how I realized I actually like zucchini. 'Cause
Oh, there you go.
when you're a kid, you like pick certain things that you hate, but you've never tried.
Yeah.
But I tried it and I was like, oh, this is actually good.
Good, good.
So I personally used to be like really religious about meal prepping. So Sunday was the day I would sit down in the morning, I would have my coffee, I would plan out all of my meals, go shopping, and like the whole day I was just cooking and putting things in containers. But it was like, that was my Sunday ritual, and that was like a fun thing for me. And I noticed personally since COVID hit and the pandemic came on, like I don't have the bandwidth for it anymore. So it just feels like too much of a task. Do you have suggestions for people who might be having a similar experience? Like, are there ways to automate this or make it easier? I know you mentioned like the rotisserie chickens at the grocery store. Those have become a staple for me.
Oh
So
yeah,
so
and like they're
trained.
so easy, and you can make so many other things from them. So again, one of the things where you don't really want to sit down and have a bunch of recipes to prep is just prep basic items. Like prep chicken breast as basic as you want. Grab a rotisserie chicken from the store. Prep a bunch of like sweet potatoes. Prep a bunch of rice. Cut up your vegetables and cut up your fruits, and then have like your basic you know fridge items, like let's say Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, or your eggs or your egg whites in there. Maybe cook up a whole bunch of hard-boiled eggs, and then make sure you have the other pantry staples on hand, whether it's like tuna or your chickpeas or your black beans or whatnot. And then you basically have like I call it like a fridge buffet of single items that are prepped that you can then throw together throughout the week in different ways. And because it's already there, you don't come home at the end of the day, or come home from your home office and go to the fridge and go, oh my God, I have to cook something, because you've already got the basics there. And then one day you might want to make throw together like a taco bowl. The next day you could do like a stir fry. The next day you could just grab hummus, a hard-boiled egg, and some raw vegetables, because you don't really feel like actually heating anything or throwing it together. You can make a salad super easily. You can make a quiche because you've already got your veggies pre-prepped, and you just add some eggs in it. So that would be my tip, is just having single items prepped ahead of time, and then just kind of like throwing them together in a way that is appetizing or appealing to you based on your mood that night. I don't know if that helps or if it's what you were looking for, but that's kind of my go-to these days.
That's helpful. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions for Michelle, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get those answered. You were talking a little bit about the water intake.
Yes.
So hydration is something people don't usually think about when we're talking about like meal prep and healthy eating, but it's actually really, really important. Is there like a set, I know the recommendations change, like, some people say a certain amount of cups of water. My trainer always told me like half your body weight in ounces of water. Is there a certain thing that you recommend to your own clients?
Yeah, so I kind of like body weight does make a big difference. And obviously, how much you're working out and whether you're working outside in the heat make a big difference. But generally, most people will fall between 2 to 3 liters of water a day in terms of what they need for their body weight. That's a general guideline. But if you want to be more specific, again, half your body weight to 2/3 of your body weight in water a day, that will give you how many ounces. So it might be like 128 ounces. You divide that by 8 and you know how many glasses to drink. So I think that's a great way to figure it out. It also varies though, depending on what your diet is like. So because a lot of like fruits and vegetables and soups have a lot of water content. So if you eat a lot of those types of foods, you need less water to drink than you would if you're eating more like heavy meats or like junk foods that don't have a lot of water content in them. So you can keep that in the back of your head. And then you'll need more when you're working out as well. So that's something you can think of too. The biggest thing with water is it really does like kind of diminish your appetite. It really does help increase your metabolic rate, and it helps all those processes, gives you a lot more energy. And so I would highly recommend that's one of the first places that you start if you don't drink a lot of water, especially if you're looking for fat loss too. That will make a big difference. And you'll find that you're craving less foods. You'll find that you're more satisfied. You won't be as hungry. You're also busy drinking the water, so that like takes away from your snacking habits a little bit, which can be a good thing. And one way to really improve your water intake, for myself and a lot of my clients who don't like the taste of plain water, really is infusing your water with like fruits or different, like maybe like basil or mint, adding some lemon, lime, strawberries in there, watermelon's great, throwing it into a big jug in the fridge, oranges in there, and it just flavors it enough to make you interested and to make you motivated to drink more of that water. So that would be, a great tip for people that wouldn't or are struggling with that. So
is there such thing as too much water?
yeah. Yeah, actually, you know what, there is, because first of all, it can be really inconvenient because you're running to the bathroom all the time, which your body will adjust to a little bit. So if that happens at first, don't be totally shocked. But yeah, you can drink too much water. And actually, like if you drink way too much and you don't have, the right, I'm trying to think, I just forgot the word right now. Magnesium and calcium and potassium and electrolytes. So if you don't have the right electrolyte balance, it can actually kill you to have too much water. It's super rare, and it's not something that you're going to be facing when you're drinking like half your body weight or 2/3 your body weight in water. It's like if you were not to eat and you were just to chug like 6 liters of water, I might say, yeah, you know what, you might want to be a little bit cautious with that. So there is, but you'd have to be in an extremely, imbalanced mode, and just not have the right balance again of, electrolytes in your body. So.
Can we go back to, we were talking about food sources and the vegan options?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So again, vegan options. So it's going to be much harder. It is possible for someone who's vegan specifically. Vegetarian, it's not that as hard because you have all the dairy products in your diet as well. But for vegans to meet their protein needs that they would need for the day. And that's really where, when you're looking at any kind of like figuring out what your macronutrients are, you always want to start with protein. So that's the number one macronutrient you're going to figure out. And basically anywhere, depending on whether you're cutting, bulking, or maintaining, anywhere from 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight is where you want to start. Vegans might have a hard time reaching that. They might be able to reach like 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein, but it could be challenging because again, they don't have the high protein grams in the foods that they're going to be eating, right? So you might have, so your beans and your lentils are great sources, but they're also really high in carbohydrates. You've got your soy, so your tempeh, your tofu, edamame is great. That's a great option.
I love edamame, yeah.
I love it. One of my favorites. And I don't know if you have a store called Farm Boy there in the States, but they have like a spicy edamame hummus that they sell. And it's like incredible. So maybe you can try and make that at home too, but throwing edamame on everything is a great option. Quinoa, your nuts, your seeds, your nut butters. So those are all sources, if you're vegan, that you would look for your proteins.
Great. Yeah. So I had one more question prep for you. If anyone has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. I wanted to know, so personal trainers, while they can kind of guide you a little bit on the basics, it's not really inside their scope of practice to like prescribe a full meal plan and that sort of thing. So what advice would you have for trainers who are looking to credential themselves and be better able to advise clients in that area?
Yeah, so that was a good question. I'm actually happy to share because I went through a lot of training and a lot of amazing courses and some not so great courses as I was, muddling my way through this over the last 20 years. So personal trainers can give general guidance on nutrition, according to their, like for us, it's Health Canada. I don't know who that would be for you guys, who does your, nutrition recommendations, but basically give like good options for increasing proteins, of drinking more water. They cannot prescribe a meal plan unless they're certified to do so. Depending on what state or province you're in, there's different regulations that guide that, on what, kind of certifications you can have and whether you can or cannot give a meal plan to somebody if that's what you were going to do. So I would recommend definitely finding one of the certifications out there if you are a personal trainer. And one of my top recommendations, because you had asked me about that, is either Precision Nutrition, which they're fantastic, especially for people that are already trainers. It's focused on training for people, focus on nutrition for people that are training or who are working out. And then ISSA is another one. So they actually, their nutrition course is the same as the precision nutrition one. They're written by the same gentleman, and he's like a PhD. He's incredible. It's a very, very well written program. They require retesting every 2 years, which reminds me, I have to do my retest to keep your certification, which is important because you do tend to forget stuff and things do change. So those would be my top 2 recommendations. Of course, if you want to go and get your degree in dietetics or in nutrition or master's in nutrition, obviously that's going to be hugely helpful. Now they're not going to tackle a lot of the things like macronutrient recommendations for bodybuilding, that type of thing. A lot of that, you'll have to go to one of the certifications if you want to learn more or learn on your own. And then you'll have to look at your local regulatory body to see what you're allowed to do and what kind of advice you're allowed to give to clients. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am out of questions. If anyone had a question for Michelle, you can feel free to get that in. If not, I'll maybe wrap this up. So today's program was made possible by gifts to the New Haven Free Public Library Foundation. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please consider making a donation at nhfpl.org/donate to help support our collections programs and services throughout the year. We're doing another one of these next month on the 21st of July, and I'll be chatting with Dr. Aaron Horschig, who's better known online as the creator of Squat University, about his newest book, Rebuilding Milo, The Lifter's Guide to Fixing Common Injuries and Building a Strong Foundation for Enhancing Performance. So I will put a link to that in the chat. And Michelle, thank you so much for coming. I've been a big fan of your content for a while, so I'm kind of like on cloud 9 right now. I didn't expect you to be able to come talk to us, so that's been awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm going to tune in next week because I'm a big fan of Squat University, so I'm pretty excited about that one.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much. And if you ever decide to publish another cookbook, please come back and have another talk with us. This has been great.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.